Hi, and thanks so much for joining us today where we discuss how to identify backdoor hires. This is the first webinar in a two-part series, so be sure to check in for part 2, where we're going to discuss how to collect on backdoor hire misplacement fees. I'll go ahead and send out a link to that at the end of this recording, so stay tuned for that. We don't want to leave you hanging here with just how to identify them. We want to make sure that you can actually take action on those as well. So just to be clear on what we're talking about today, let's get started with a little definition of what a backdoor hire is. A backdoor hire is when you present a candidate to your client who then hires that candidate within your protection period and doesn't tell you. So there's a variety of reasons this might happen. We can get into that a little bit more detail later, but sometimes it's really just a big oversight. Sometimes they're just being sneaky, and sometimes it's something in between. So there's a lot of different reasons, but the fact of the matter is that this is a big problem, and it's time that we start talking about it. FECATS has actually estimated that somewhere between 5 and 10% of your placed candidates slip by, causing you to miss out on a substantial sum of placement fees. So that means for every 9 people you think you've hired, you've actually hired 10. So if you think about what that can be, what that means from an impact on your revenue, that's pretty substantial. As a matter of fact, we actually estimated that recruiters are losing out on nearly $1 billion in misplacement fees each year. And we're also finding that on top of all of this, the problem isn't really going away anytime soon. One of our collections partners, Adams, Evans, and Ross, has actually seen these types of collection cases increase almost 300% since the start of last year. So that $1 billion that recruiters are missing in placement fees every year is going to continue growing. So we kind of want to start thinking about this problem, thinking of different ways to solve it, and making sure that this isn't something that's impacting your bottom line in ways that it really doesn't have to. So the good news is that there is a silver lining to this issue. More often than not, what we'll find is that a placement is missed really because of a simple oversight on your client's end. They just forget to follow up after hiring a candidate that you referred over to them. They're just as busy as you are. If they're in a large company, they're moving on to the next position just as quickly as you are. If they're in a smaller company, they probably have to worry about their onboarding, getting the candidate set up. And, sometimes they just don't really remember to reach out to you and say, hey, we owe you money. Not like that's a huge surprise. But the good news is that in this case, these clients are more than happy to pay you when you bring the oversight to their attention. So that just means that you give them a call, you send them a quick email, and you say, hey, I just noticed that you hired this candidate. Congratulations. I'm so glad that was a great fit. I just wanted to talk to you about, sending you an invoice, so give me a call back when you get a chance. You don't want to place the blame on your client. You don't want to assume that they're out to get you. Give them the benefit of the doubt, because more often than not, they just kind of forgot to call you and let you know. In some other cases, you could actually get some pushback from your client. There might be some sort of gray area. So, for example, if the candidate was already in their database, if the candidate was referred by an employee, or if the candidate was submitted by maybe another recruiter at a different agency, the client might be hesitant to pay you because they don't think they owe you the money. Most recruiters do have some sort of documentation in place to protect against these things. So again, it's important just to at least reach out to them. If you find that these sort of excuses come up a lot, then best case scenario is that you find you have a little snake in the grass and you know that you have a dishonest client, and maybe you want to focus your time on those clients that are, a better fit for your agency. So we'll go ahead and review how to collect on each of those different situations during our next webinar. But the good news is that we found that actually 78% of misplacement fees are paid when they're identified and brought to the client's attention, so long as it's within a year of the submission of that candidate. This number does decrease actually to 50% in the second year, but doesn't mean that all of the hope is lost. There's a statute of limitations on misplacement fee collections, generally ranges from 3 to 4 years. So you can actually take action on your missed placements long after the placement has actually been made, although you would stand to benefit from collecting sooner rather than later. So like we were saying, if you find it out and in the first year, you have a 78% chance of getting those missed fees. If you wait one more year, that chance goes down to 50%. The longer you wait, the less chances you have of actually collecting your fee. So as quickly as you can find these misplacements and bring them to your candidate's attention, the better it really is for your bottom line. So the question is, what can you do to identify these backdoor hires? The answer is actually pretty simple. Probably not the answer that you want to hear because it's a little time consuming, but what you need to do is track each of your candidates. So what you really need to do is make sure that you have a system in place for checking against your backdoor hires. This needs to be done on a regular basis. So you might decide to have an admin do the research for your entire team. You might have each recruiter do his or her own research. But basically what you want to do is track your backdoor hires on a regular basis. So the best case scenario is to check in with the candidate several times throughout the year. So generally you would follow up shortly after submitting them to your client just to see if any communications have been made that you weren't aware of. You might also follow up with them a month or two later to see if any progress has been made. But unfortunately, that's where a lot of recruiters stop keeping track of their candidates. If they haven't seen that hire take place in the first couple of months, they just kind of assume that the candidate's been rejected. But it turns out that's not often the case. Larger companies especially can take so long to hire a new person and to make that decision and to get them through the entire ranks of the organization that, it can take sometimes up to a year even, which is why it's great to have your contracted period for up to 12 months. And so the question is, why more recruiters don't actually track all the way up through that 12-month contracted period. And I think the reason is just that it can be a little bit tedious. So, if you're doing this on your own, you might start with LinkedIn, search the candidate's name, see if they've updated their LinkedIn profile. The unfortunate fact, though, is that a lot of candidates don't change their LinkedIn profiles unless they're looking for a new job. So it's not always the first thing they update. So then you might have to go to Google or Facebook to see if they've updated any information elsewhere. If those all fail and you can't find that the candidate has done anything, you might also want to try calling in to your client's office to ask for the candidate by name. So if you call and you say, "Hi, I'm looking for XYZ so-and-so, are they available?" and you get passed to that person, then you know that they've been hired. The thing to be really careful of here is to not harass your candidate in any way, because this can cause trouble for you down the road. Your client won't like this. Your candidate likely won't enjoy it either. So I'd say, the best thing that I would say is just call and let them know, "Hi, I just heard that you got this position. Wanted to congratulate you and see how it's going." Just kind of leave it open-ended. That way you're able to confirm that they're working there without causing any trouble, let's say. So that's really the best way to go about tracking your candidates if you're going to do it manually. You might just want to do this during the slow summer months or during the holiday season, or like I said, on a pretty regular basis, depending on how much time you have available. So like I was saying before, this clearly is not an enjoyable task to complete, which is probably why fewer than 10% of candidates are tracked over time. Tracking candidates is so slow and tedious, and recruiters actually move very fast, submitting candidates, scheduling interviews, following up with clients, following up with candidates, and then moving on to the next job rec without ever looking back. So it's not really any surprise that only 5 to 10% of placed candidates are not identified. because we're not tracking them because it's too time consuming. So the good news is that FeeCatcher can help. FeeCatcher has automated the process of tracking your candidates so that you can identify your backdoor hires without having to take your team away from what they do best, which is recruit. So our algorithm searches the publicly available professional data and automatically notifies you if a company hires your candidate during your contract period. So this helps save you time, and it helps you uncover some missed revenue opportunities with very minimal effort. We've already uncovered $500,000 for a smaller 50-person agency. So whether you're a really large agency or a very small one or even just a one-off recruiter, it's possible that we're going to find something for you as well. And, you know, it's always worth checking. We actually have a special offer right now. So we want everybody to see the value they can get from FeeCatcher. We really feel that, you know, once you've identified some of these backdoor hires and seen the potential for what you can collect in terms of, you know, your misplacement fees, that you'll see the value in checking your candidates and tracking them. So we'd like to invite you to search your past candidate submissions to see if we can find any backdoor hires for you too. And what we're actually offering is that you get the first 3 leads absolutely free. After that, it's completely up to you if you want to automate your candidate tracking or if you just want to take those 3 leads and go. But we do hope that you'll find value in this tool and that you'll want to go forward with the automated tracking. So thank you so much for joining us today where we discussed how to identify your backdoor hires. And please join us for our next webinar. We'll be talking about collecting those misplacement fees. So now that you know how to find them, we want to make sure that you're actually able to get your placement fees from your clients as well. So we'll talk about that next. And I'll go ahead and follow up within 24 hours of this presentation to make sure everybody has a webinar recording of today's meeting, as well as some of the links for our next webinar and for our free trial offer, just to make sure that you have everything in one place. If you have any questions at all about finding backdoor hires, collecting on backdoor hires, how to use FeeCatcher, or just want to chat, feel free to reach out at any time. John Guidi, the very friendly CEO, he'd love to talk. You can reach him at john@feecatcher.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you all next time.